Welcome to the Weekly Juice Podcast, where we discuss all things real estate, personal finance, investing, entrepreneurship, and the many ways to achieve financial independence. We interview accomplished investors and entrepreneurs with the goal that their stories inspire you to take control of your financial future. Here to get your creative juices flowing, while also documenting their own personal investing journeys, are your hosts, Corey Jacobson and Ryan Bevilacqua.
Welcome back to the Weekly Juice. As always, it's your boys Ryan and Corey here with another episode. Today we had on special guest David Pere. He is a 13-year Marine Corps vet who bought his first rental property in 2015 and has since scaled up to over 100 units.
Well over 100 now, yeah.
Well over. We've talked about, he talked about scaling up his portfolio, and we'll go through it, but he started with a single family, then duplex, triplex, quad, and then went up to a 10 unit, 12, and then I think all the way up to like a 79 unit, something like that.
He did a 40-unit hotel that he still owns now. He's a syndicating partner on hundreds of units, but he really talked to like every single type of way to buy real estate. He's done it. He's a really funny dude. He's very cavalier in his mentality, but he kind of walked us through a really fun deal that he's done. We've also talked horror stories, like literal horror stories about like deaths in properties and stuff. So we give you the good, the bad, the ugly about real estate, but this dude, he's kind of done it all, and he's really open book.
Yeah, I think the coolest part is his main shtick, if you will, is to help service members, active and formerly active duty members, how to create financial freedom. Also put a financial plan in order from anything from get your financial house in order. Also teach them how to buy real estate and build generational wealth, but also the intricacies of the programs that the military offers. And I think he helps put things into a nice, pretty package and says, hey, here's all your benefits here. Here's how I use them. Here's how you can use them. And he has his social media is at from Millionaire or from Military to Millionaire?
From Military to Millionaire, and then from militarytomillionaire.com is where his site is, and he has a whole program. It is based specifically for service members, but I'm pretty sure you can get involved even if you're not. But yeah, really exciting episode today, and let's dive in with David.
Let's do it. Dave, officially welcome to the Weekly Juice Podcast. Corey and I are so excited to have you on the show, man. As we mentioned pre-recording, we've done a lot of research on you. You've been connected for probably a couple of years on social. So we've been following your journey. You're absolutely killing it. So we're thrilled to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can't wait. So let's dive in. Walk us through your background on how you got into real estate investing. We always find it super interesting to hear everybody's story and kind of what sparked the light bulb when you were like, hey, real estate's going to be my future.
Yeah. Well, I did the whole Marine Corps thing because I didn't have money for school. I didn't know what I wanted to study. I grew up in Arkansas, and I was like, I want to leave. I need some adventure in my life, and I don't have money to leave town. So, those Marine Corps dudes, they look good in uniform, and they seem to always have hot girlfriends. So that looks like a good avenue, and so that was kind of the thing. And it worked, right? I got to travel the world. I mean, the first 4 years I was in the Marine Corps, I saw 13 countries and lots of adventure. Went to Afghanistan, did the things, and had a lot of fun. And then fast forward to, that was in 2008. So fast forward to 2015, I find myself 2 years into recruiting duty, and we're working just crazy hours. And I'm in a pretty serious relationship. I think I'm actually getting engaged or already engaged at this time. And it's not that I guess technically I probably had a negative net worth, but it wasn't like I'd made the worst financial decisions. I just hadn't made the best financial decisions. I'd blown all my money on drinking and tattoos and Harleys and trucks and cars and women and rifles and shotguns and all the typical 18 to 20-year-old dude who just came back from Afghanistan and has a little bit of pocket change things. But I'd also put some money into their savings plan, 401k, and had a little bit of money here and there. So it could have been a lot worse. I wasn't a catastrophe, and I had a lot of great experiences and I lived life, and so it was good. But I also wasn't going to be able to walk out of the Marine Corps and just walk away. And it wasn't that I was wanting to walk away from the Marine Corps, but someone handed me the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I told him I don't read, and so he gave me the CD, and I was like, oh well, I guess I can listen to this while I drive. And man, that book changed my life real quick. And it was like Audible download, and then all the Purple Library, all of Bigger Pockets, all the books. And within like 4 months, it was like perfect timing. The lease on my apartment was coming due, and all these things just kind of fell into place. And I bought a duplex. I lived in one half, rented the other, and I went from paying $550 a month to live in a 2-1 apartment to basically the equivalent of paying like $175 a month to own a 2-bedroom, 1-bath duplex, and have the other tenant paying for their side and have a little shop storage shed thing. I'm actually under contract to sell that thing right now. And so I bought it for $79,900, and we're under contract to sell it for $172, I think.
Nice.
So
Perfect.
7 years later, I think. Math in public, 7 years.
Sounds about right.
2015, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
8 years.
yeah, 7.5. Yeah. And so, yeah, at that point I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm living a lot cheaper and whatever. And then when I got stationed in Hawaii, and it was paying me $200 a month. I was like, oh, this is even cooler. And then, that was when the bug kind of like really kicked in, because I was like, oh, this might work. And then, and I'd gotten that thing with an FHA loan. So it was like $2,000 or $3,000. I think it was $4,000 all in, when like LVP and some paint, some touch ups and my down payment and everything. And then it was just kind of off to the races. I was like, well, I'll save up some more money and try this again. And my next property was the best deal I ever did so far. And so it's just been, from there, it's like things just kind of took off. More and more and more and more. And, so.
So, well, I think I want to touch on that, Dave. Like, I'm curious. I'm wondering if something from your time in the Marine Corps, like, do you think that helped you strategize to try to build this portfolio? I imagine some sort of discipline or something came into effect that you were able to, because what people don't know, may or may not know, is that you then went to over 100 units in the next 5 years. So that is pretty incredible. I'm curious, like, what do you think it was about? Was it just a mentality thing that you were able to scale so quickly?
Probably dumb luck. Part of it, that's fair. I mean, part of it was mentality, I'm sure. Part of it was just, I don't know. I mean, I would like to think that I've always been kind of an achiever when it comes to like wanting to be, when I set my sights on things. But part of it was that I was the guy who was waking up at 4 a.m. to get an hour and a half, 2 hours of work done before going to work, coming home and working till 9, 10 at night, and then working weekends. I remember distinctly like I had a point in time in California when my family had moved back to Missouri the last year and a half that I was active duty. And I had a roommate, John, and he was a lender at the time, still one of my best friends. And I had just a crazy burnout. I mean, it was like a weekend, it was a full weekend where I was just like, I was trying so hard to get stuff done. And I was just like, dude, I'm not, like, nothing has happened. Like, I don't get it, man. I was like, I am like, there's literally nothing being accomplished. And I'm spending every hour this weekend trying to accomplish things. Like, what the hell is going on? And he and I were having a serious conversation, and he was the same way. And we were like, like what? So we consulted with like a friend of ours who was super successful. We like took him to dinner, and we were just like, dude, it wasn't like it's this planned, like, let's go pick his brain type thing. It was just like, we were like, dude, let's get out of the freaking house. Like, we took this buddy to dinner, a couple people. And while we were there, we were talking to him, and it took a pretty intense conversation to realize that it was just that we were burnt out. We were just burning the candle so hard on every end. And I literally had to sit down and start like intentionally scheduling. This is pretty funny, actually. I journal, I plan all the time. I had to like intentionally, because I was taking like time off on the weekends for like a little bit here and a little bit there. But what I didn't realize is that, let's say I would go to the movie theater for like 2 hours and go watch a movie. But I would go, and I would think the whole time I was there, I would be thinking that I was missing out on things I could be doing. And so it wasn't relaxing or recharging at all.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. And so I had to like start telling myself in the journal, like, you will go lay in the sun by the pool for an hour, and that is your duty for like, that is part of your job. Like that is your most important task today. And not only like give yourself permission to recharge, but like tell yourself like, this is like no shit, the most important thing you're going to do today. It took a while to get past that. But all that being said, like, I mean, I was probably working 40 hours a week on the side hustle, you know, so most people aren't doing that. I guess
No, I
that's
mean,
probably part of it.
but even to have the intentionality to separate yourself from work, I think that's a powerful thing, because I struggle with that all the time. Like I have a couple of vacations planned, and I'm like, if I leave my phone in the room, or like if I leave it away from me, I'm good. But if I have this thing near me, like I'm getting sucked in, but in order to actually perform, I think you really need that break and that time. So, which is awesome. But I want to specifically talk about the scaling of your portfolio now. Like, so we talked about how you were able to time block and that helped you, but getting from a couple units to 100 in 5 years, did you have a specific strategy, like a buy box? Like what was your, hey, I'm going to go do this repetitively? Or was it really like sporadic and did you meet the right people? Just give us some context of what went on there.
Yeah, I'm the worst person to ask this because it's not a very followable model and not one that I would recommend to people, because I'm not I buy 3 2s between 1990 and 2010. And they fit.
Most people are not, by the way, so we understand that.
Yeah, I am I buy things that I can hold on to if they pay me. And it doesn't really matter what they are. And for reference, that means that I either have owned or do currently own everything from 1 to 40 units in the classification of, you know, single, duplex, triplex, fourplex, 10, 23, 15 unit apartment, 40 unit hotel, RV park, and there was a mobile home park in there at one point, and hopefully a storage unit soon, but we haven't got the contract back. And then been partners on 2 syndications as a GP. And like that's buy and hold side. I also had a wholesaling company for 2 years that I sold to a friend. I've done a bunch of flips, done some burrs. I mean, like I've screwed around with everything. I've had 2 or 3 Airbnbs, almost bought I had a 64,000 square foot mixed use commercial building at one point, but that was a lease option that kind of went south. I didn't end up executing the lease option, got all my money back out of it. And then, so I've
done it
all kinds of stuff, but the long and short is it was like the duplex, the 10 unit, if you take out the big mixed use mistake, duplex, single family, and then, when I was doing the wholesaling company, I was trying to learn how to find off-market deals. And what I would do was, at one point we were doing like 4 deals a month, and we would basically wholesale 2, flip 1, and then burr 1 and like refinance 1. And we would try to do that monthly. And then if we could, we would try to keep 2 of them back and wholesale 2. And so we would do that to try to scale it up. And, you know, if it was a duplex involved, we would always keep the duplex, or if it was a fourplex, we'd keep that one. And then there were points where like one letter landed us a duplex and 3 single families. So there's 5 units. And then when it really got crazy was one letter landed us a 40 unit hotel, 23 unit apartment, 15 unit apartment, and single family. So that was 79 doors, like, you know, overnight. And so we landed that and sold a couple. So it's, you know, it's funny because I tell people like, yeah, it was like 5.5 years to like 100 doors. Well, really it was like 5.5 years to like somewhere around 140 doors, and then back to like 90. And then it's just kind of done this for, I don't even know where I'm at right now. I have no idea.
I think that's interesting that you say that, because there's always this thought that like, okay, I got to go buy a 2 unit, then I got to buy a 4 unit, then I got to buy an 8, a 16, 30. Like you got to scale up that way. And in reality, I'm thinking about this I'm selling like the first investment property I ever bought. I bought it for 125. I probably I'm going to sell it for like 210, and it's in a 3-year span. So I was able to triple my money. I was telling the people I was able to triple my money in 3 years. But you know, in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm going backwards on unit count. But it's like, wait a second. Like the whole point is to take that money and then go invest it into a bigger property. So I'll reduce my unit count by 2, and then save up some more money. And the whole goal is either to try to get another property that brings you more cash flow, or maybe buy a 5 to 10 unit or a 15 unit or something like that to scale up that way. So it sounds like you had this generally upward trajectory, but it was also like you had to probably move some stuff around to get to a bigger property. I mean, am I right there?
Yeah, well, and I'll let you in on the secret that I would venture to say that most successful investors will tell you behind closed doors, but probably not in public, just because it's not the sexy secret, and that is that doors are ego and cash flow is what actually matters.
Yep.
So whenever people start speaking indoors, I usually it's real quick try to decipher. Like, you'll notice that I didn't tell you how many doors the syndications were. I mean, if anyone cares, there are 916 units. It's a 670 unit portfolio and 100 and whatever the math is on the difference, 186 or whatever that was, 146. And I don't speak that because my ownership is like 0.33% on one and 0.37% on the other. So it's like a 3% ownership, so it's like, wow, yeah, I own part of a $57 million complex, but my ownership is peanuts, so when you shake it all down, I think my ownership of that 670 unit deal is like 2 or 3 doors.
Right.
It's such an ego thing. And I hate when I hear people be like, oh, I own this many doors. It's like, how much cash flow did that thing kick me this year? 0 in distribution so far, because I'm on the GP side. I'm not going to see distributions for probably 2 years. I mean, there's a little bit on the acquisition fee, but minimal. And so realistically, like, it doesn't matter. All that matters is, like, is your business keeping you afloat, and is it allowing you to keep investing in the next thing, and are you happy? And
so as you scaled the business, did you go in with a partner on a bunch of these deals? Because I think a lot of people listening would be like, this is great. I mean, to get to where you got in such a quote unquote short period of time is pretty amazing, but also it's hard to go alone on some of these things. So you also mentioned the wholesale company that opened a few doors for you. So Corey and I go in on deals together. Then we have a couple other people in our little like knit of buying team. But I'm curious for you, did you have 1 or 2 or multiple people going in, or was this a solo adventure for you?
Yeah, no, I've played around for sure. I've got that 5 unit little portfolio. I was the guy who was my roommate in California. We were standing in the living room one day and I was like, hey, I got this cool portfolio. You want to buy this together? And so we went 50-50 on the down payment. He's also a 1/3 owner with me and my other buddy Hugh here in town on the hotel, that 79 unit. So we on the 5-door, John and I put 15 grand down each. On the 79 unit portfolio, the 3 of us each put 100 grand down. Lucky for me, I was able to refi right before that out of one of my properties and pull most of that. Actually, I think I refied one and sold a duplex. And so, power of real estate, right? Because I wouldn't have ever had that kind of cash laying around if it wasn't for that. And then, let's see, I've got another one. The RV park is crazy because it's just the power of networking. Buddy calls me and said, I have this crazy good deal, but I need 100 grand to make it happen. And a buddy of mine, who's one of my private lenders, I called him and I was like, hey, look at this deal. What do you think? And he loved it. And then I put them together, and then I brought my lender, I brought my LLC company, and they gave me 10% equity for basically bringing everybody together. And I didn't bring cash. And the only thing I've really done is the Google business page. So
Dave, awesome. Like, it's funny, man, because you have such a cavalier, like laid back mentality about it, or at least that's how you're at this stage, right? I'm curious if there was a competitive advantage that you were able to acquire all of this. Was it just because you were in the game and you were consistently meeting other people that were doing it? Because I think if people are listening, they're like, this sounds awesome, but like, how would I do that? And is it even possible to build it a similar way in 2023 than the way that you did in 2015, 16, 17, 18, and still are, today? I'm curious.
I think absolutely, because, if I'm being honest about how I built my portfolio, I would say I was half-assed most of the time. Like as my brand started to grow, it started to get way more of my attention than actual real estate. I mean, aside from when I was running the wholesaling company, marketing for real estate, like I was not the most consistent with marketing for deals. I was never the most consistent with MLS or writing offers, or, I wasn't great at the follow-up game. I'm not the most detail-oriented guy. Anyone who knows me as an investor, like actually physically has been close to me on deals, I'm terrible with managing contractors. I hate going by renovation projects and having to feel like I got to keep my thumb on people. I hope my project manager or property managers are great, and luckily mine is, because God knows I don't want to micromanage them, and I don't ever want to take my properties back. Like I don't do well with the details, right? So I either need a partner or partners who are really good at the ops side, or I just need like people, like I have to get lucky with all that stuff. And I haven't been as involved as I could have or should have been in the marketing side or the ops side. So there are, I guess my answer long short would be, yeah. I know for a fact that had I made real estate my only focus for that 5 years, I would have crushed it even more hardcore. It's just that I was in the right place at the right time. I said yes when opportunities arose, and I wasn't scared to say yes and figure it out along the way. And yeah, I was good at networking, and people, trusted me enough to go along for the ride.
Got it. So we got to what you do probably as best as any other thing, and that would be networking, like the people, the connecting, right? And Ryan and I feel like we're pretty good at that as well. Or at least that's what we like to do. If somebody else is trying to start now, do you put networking at the forefront? Like, do you put that because it's the way you did it? Would you say in this day and age that's the best way to do it? Like, go try to meet as many people as you can and try to bring small amounts of value that you can, not knowing a lot. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I would say you hit the nail on the head. Networking is, I would consider, my superpower, and probably the reason that some of this came easy. Just knowing the right people to call when you got questions or opportunities. And the thing is, people try to network when the time is right instead of just networking because they want to just get to know people. And so you never know when the time's going to be right. And if you haven't built that relationship and you come when the time is right, it's going to feel like an ask, So yeah, I would say absolutely get out there and start meeting people. Go to local investor meetups, and don't ask, give. Get to know people. Be genuine. Get to know their story. Don't my favorite phrase. Don't be an asshole. Let's go. Get out there and add value. And by add value, I don't mean go up to them and be like, Corey, how can I add value to you? And make them think about it. I just mean be an upbeat person, be fun to be around. Don't ask like 20 million questions all the time. Like, there's nothing wrong with asking questions, but like if it's a simple question that you could ask on Google, save it for Google, write it down. Ask more complex questions, ask good questions, ask specific questions about their situation that show you're paying attention. Pay attention to that person, get to know that person, rather than like, what's the VA loan? Like, go to Google for that. Why did you use the VA loan in this specific situation instead of the FHA loan is a much better question than what is the VA loan? Like, go to freaking Google for that question. Things like that. Make sure you're using your time valuable.
So let me ask you this. I think the second iteration of networking is the hardest part. Is, okay, you meet someone, you get to know their story, but then it's how do you foster and kind of like maintain that relationship, being that everybody's in different parts of the world. A couple of things, like I see social media, you have Zoom, you have, these big events. There's a lot of ways to do it, but for you, what did you find as your bread and butter in terms of keeping up with people, right? And like having your face out there. Was it your social media, or were you texting people, calling people? Like, how do you keep in touch?
Social media is big, for sure. I definitely recommend, if you're doing stuff, post it on social media. I was doing a presentation on private lending earlier today, and I picked up my phone and was like, if you're walking a property, even if you don't own it, like, look at this house that I'm looking at, blah, 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 and post 10 seconds and post it on Facebook, or analyzing a deal. And this is what I'm looking at, it's not hard. People just don't think about it. And those little things add up because people just see, oh, here goes Dave doing this thing again. I used to make it a point, and I used to make it a point to do ridiculous things too. Like, it would be just pissing rain outside of one of my rentals, and the yard would be like completely flooded, and the house is just a crapshoot, and we have to go do XYZ at the rental. And I would be like, well, this is going to suck. So I might as well just dive through the puddle head first and have someone filming me do it for like no reason at all other than it'll be funny and people will remember it while I'm looking at my rental, and like the video, just stupid things that people will remember, be memorable. But I would say, yeah, social media is great. But for me, the only other thing outside of like social media and just, and not just posting, but also like sharing stuff. Like if I want, if I see something from you guys that I like, I'll share it. Or if you tag me in something, I'll reshare it or in comment or whatever, just adding value online. But the other thing too is, yeah, the occasional text, hey man, I appreciate you, or just wanted to let you know I'm thinking of you, or just, hey, how's it going? And by occasional, I do mean like, occasional. I have some people in my phone who text me like every Monday, and I'm like,
Stop.
yeah, like
Respectfully.
like once a quarter is plenty,
Yeah.
like I don't even talk to my own brother that much. I mean, I do, but
it's growing up with Sales 101 was like keep in touch with people every 30 days. And even that's kind of overdoing. Maybe bump it to 45, or you could go quarter too. I was just curious how you make it work, because I always find we chat with people on interviews, right? We have an amazing show, and then we'll catch up on social, right? Via DM or something like that. But it's not like we're texting all the time and checking in. And then it's usually when we either like, hey, I have a deal or have a question or blah, 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 right? You said when opportunity comes, it's you think of some specific person because they fit that very unique lane that you found, which this platform has helped us, right? Because we're essentially sharing people's story, and then they're like, hey, we had fun with you guys. It was laid back, easy show. And I know you guys are up in that region, but we're always looking everywhere. And then I guess this is kind of parlaying into like the next iteration of my question in the second or third phase of networking, in a way, is like a mastermind group. And I want to talk about that too. I know you're in one. Can you talk to the value you see in networking groups, or I guess mastermind groups, and if you recommend, or when you recommend people take the plunge and they, start paying for some sort of program or coaching like that?
Yeah, not only am I in one, I run one. I'm a huge fan. I've been in quite a few, actually. I've been in free ones, which pretty much never work, all the way up to the one that you're referencing, which is $1,000 a month. Actually, I think they upped the price a little bit. Yeah, they're huge. And the thing is, like, the advice that I always tell people, or the advice I've been giving people lately, and I'll summarize it all, is basically to filter the advice that you get from people through the lens of whether or not they've achieved what you want to, right? Surround yourself by people who are going the same way you are, and blah, 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 blah. Put yourself in the right room, right? It's the same thing everyone else says. And those mastermind groups are a cheat code. I mean, you are putting yourself in a room where people have either achieved or are trying to achieve the exact same thing you do. It's like, especially like that one, the high level, GoBundance one is, I joined, I had $1 million, 1.1 net worth, and I'm the bottom of the totem pole in that room. And it's like, I don't know, it's like being a amateur bodybuilder and joining a gym, and the prereq to join the gym is everybody has to have their IFBB fitness card. They're all professional bodybuilders. There's not a single person in the gym who's not either a pro bodybuilder or a coach or a nutritionist. And it's like, well, you can't really help but get in shape by going to a gym that doesn't allow anybody in the gym who is not a pro. You got it.
That's exactly right. So they're just carrying you up to that level. It's we talked about this on how many podcast episodes, and too many, exactly. And the reason why I say too many is because we're candidly, like, we're busy, but that's the next phase for us too. It is to get into the rooms, that help bring you up to that level. So I can totally appreciate that. And then, how is Go Abundance? I'm assuming by joining that, it has skyrocketed the networking, the deals, social, everything is. I assume that's the case, right?
I've been in for 15 months, 14 months. The first month that I was in, Jamie Gruber was like, "Hey, here's..."
That was last week's episode for us.
Oh,
it was great. Yeah.
Yes, Jamie's awesome. He goes, "Hey, here's 3 or 4 people that are in your town. You should meet these guys." And one of them I sat down with for lunch the very next week. And as we're about to get up from lunch, I casually mentioned that I was thinking about selling a 10 unit, which I had actually had an off-market unsolicited offer on about a quarter before that. And the buyer fell out. Like, it was a weird deal. They fell out on closing day. I guess they tried to assign it, even though there was no assignment clause. And anyway, they did a bunch of illegal, shady stuff. And ultimately, I got them to settle out of court for like 10 grand after they broke the contract. And I had just decided to keep it for a little while. And then I was like, well, the market's doing some weird stuff. It's still pretty hot. Might just list it. And I just casually mentioned that over lunch because I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about selling this. And he goes, well, I've got a buddy moving into town who just closed a 1031, and he has to identify a property by close of business in 2 days. And the only thing is that he has to identify a property for $10,000 more than you just said you're going to list that for. So he hasn't identified anything. Let me run it by him. And like literally the next day we were under contract. And so, I
yourself in the right room.
essentially made $100,000 within the first month of joining $1,000 a month Mastermind.
Case closed right there. So I want to talk about your, like, maybe you just mentioned making $100,000. That sparked a thought for me. Is like, you have so many different deals that you've done, which I think is a testament to the dot connector, the networker, like finding something that you feel like fits. It doesn't have to be a buy box, but it's like, oh, this will work for me. This will make me money, right? Do you have a deal that you can walk us through, like a favorite or doesn't have to be the most lucrative, but something that stands out? Maybe you can give some details on it, either what it cost, how you're able to purchase it, what it cash flows, if you still hold on to it. Just give us some background. I don't know if you have something off the top of your head.
And maybe one of the deals that like took you to the next level.
Yeah.
Not to jump in there, but just think, sometimes there's that one deal like, dude, this is the one that made me who I am in the investing world. So,
well, probably my favorite deal, other than how fun it is to tell people you own a hotel, because they all look at you like, whoa, and they just assume it's awesome, even though it's like a sucking chest wound of my portfolio right now.
It's funny. That's exactly when you said, dude, I was like, yeah,
hotel.
Like,
he's like, I hate it.
Yeah, people are like, wow, you have a hotel? Like, yeah, it's not as cool as you think. It loses money. And they're like, wow. They're like, yeah. They're like, does it have a pool? Like, yeah, we had someone drown in it too. It's awesome.
Oh, man.
All right, so you want to tell us about the hotel, or you want to pick a different one?
Oh, no.
Definitely can't be your favorite.
No, it's no. We're actually under contract to sell the hotel, though, and we're going to come out on top. And when we bought the hotel, it still had the single family, which we made money on when we sold it, and the 2 apartments, which are cash flow positive. So all in all, the entire portfolio was still a win, and will still be a win, because we're up $850,000 on our appraisals year to date. We've owned the apartments for not even a full year. Yeah. No. Man, did we buy in 21? Yeah, we bought in 21. So yeah, a year and a half.
Yeah.
So a year and a half we've owned the apartments, and we're up $850,000 from the first appraisal to the second appraisals. So, and we're cash flowing like $5,000. And then the hotel kind of, sort of, almost balances that back a little bit on the cash flow, but not on the equity. So we're still good there. And then we're going to sell it, and we'll get most of our money back out of it and whatever. Tons of lessons learned. So, on management and stuff, and hiring and firing teams like 3 times. And but the deal that I love was actually my second, and it's the one that I sold over lunch, essentially. And it's that did that 10 unit. So I was sending letters, handwritten, like yellow legal pad letters from Hawaii for duplexes. This guy called me and was like, I have a duplex, but I don't want to sell it. But, I have this 10 unit and I would be willing to sell you the 10 unit. I'm like, well, all I've bought is a duplex and that sounds really scary, but, let's see the numbers. And keep in mind, this is, Poto, Missouri in 2017, and this is a Class D property. So the numbers he comes back at, he's asking $225 for a 10 unit or $240, and I got him down to like $225, and then it ended up appraising for $240, but with the inspection, it came down to like $212.5 because I was reading Never Split the Difference, so I negotiated a bunch, and I was actually really proud of myself because I only needed like $8,000 off, but I got $12,500 off, and blah blah blah.
I just can't believe that a 10 unit was selling for $225,000. So like, that's incredible. I mean, talking about like $20,000 a door. It's wild.
Yeah, and its current rents were like $4,200, and I had them up to like $48 by the time we sold it, maybe even a little higher. But it was just, it was a headache property with just always issues, but Class D, whatever. But the kicker is that the bank was, it was going to be 80% bank, 10% seller financed, and 10% down from me. And when we dropped the price from $225 to $212.5, the bank didn't get the memo. And so I show up at closing and the bank is like, so we didn't realize the price dropped. We can do one of two things. We can either go back and redo all the loan docs and close next week, or you can go get another check and come back with less down. I was like, what's the difference? And like, basically it came out to 85% bank financing, 10% seller financing, and 5% down. So I put $10,990.67 down and bought this thing. And then it cash flowed year over year positive, not month over month. There were obviously months that were not positive, like the month that someone died in it. And that was a whole thing. And then,
yeah,
oh,
dude, 2 deaths in the last 30 minutes. Like, what's going on?
I'm the king. I've got at least 5 deaths in the last in rooms. Like, don't get me wrong, real estate's great, but like I've had shotgun to the face, suicide, drowning, this person like dead for like 3 weeks, rotting in their room with no next of kin, where we had to like keep their stuff in a storage unit for 90 days. I've had like all of the worst types of dead tenants you can possibly have.
What do you, not to cut you off here, but because we have not really talked about this, what do you do? Like, let's just say you own a place. This would be a fun one for, not maybe to relive, but how the heck do you navigate that? Like, we've heard heard about fires, heard about flooding. I have not heard about what the hell to do with a dead tenant.
Yeah. Well, just before I lose the train of thought, the last piece on that is we sold for $340, and so turned the $11,000 essentially into like $120 or whatever.
How long?
I bought it in February 28th of 2017, and I sold it February 28th of 2018, and sold it February 28th of 2022. So 4 years to the day.
Amazing.
It's incredible.
Can't beat that.
To answer your question, it really depends. But if there's next of kin, it's not too bad. You just, hey, come pick up their crap and whatever. If there's no next of kin, then you can't get a hold of anyone. Then you've got to cremate them and do the burial, or your property manager, and all of that. And then you also have to store all of their belongings in a storage unit, and you have to rent a storage unit. You can't like put them in with anything else. It has to be their own storage unit that you have to rent, put it under a lock, and leave it for 90 days to see if anyone does show up to claim anything before you can throw all their stuff out. And you have to itemize it and all that fun stuff.
You have to disclose that somebody died in the property when you rent it.
That might vary state by state. We didn't, but you do have to, depending on like.
I feel like I'm not moving in there.
Yeah, depending on like how they died, though.
Right.
Like in both the shotgun and the guy who, I mean, it's gross, but literally it was August and he had a window unit and the window unit wasn't on, and it's August in Missouri. He paid rent, and best we can tell, he passed away within a week of paying rent, and nobody noticed till he didn't pay rent the next month. And so
Sweltering for 30 days, just about. Or...
Not pleasant. So in both of those situations, we had to bring in what they call industrial hygiene, which is essentially like strip the carpet, strip the paint. Like, I mean, it was like $5,000 in like just cleaning and stripping the unit on the first guy.
Did you at least have property managers in this scenario?
Yeah. I mean, I had one phone call and then a phone call when it was done.
This is why property managers.
Yeah, this is exactly why.
Have to have a property manager.
They pay for. It doesn't matter how much money they take each month, as long as you're not losing money. Like, dude,
you have to go through some BS to realize that it's worth it. It's just like it seems like a pain. You're like, oh, we're splitting the difference. Well, not the difference, but they're eating into the cash flow. Until something goes wrong, you don't really feel it. Like, for example, here we would have been like, oh, what are we doing? There's a dead guy in the apartment. I have no Core, what do we do? Like, I don't know. Let's hit Google and you try to figure it out and take the steps. But property managers typically have a how-to or step-by-step guide on even every scenario. Probably dead people, I would guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like literally, she called me and said, "I talked to your insurance company. This is the deductible. This is what it's going to cost. We're within $200. Do you want it on your insurance or not?" And I said, "Nope. I'll just pay it." And she was like, "Okay." And that was pretty much the phone call. And then she was like, and then I was like, out of curiosity, what does this happen? What happens? And she's like, well, we got to do cremating. We got to do this. 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 And we got to basically gut all of this, strip paint, strip the flooring, blah, 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 blah. The shotgun one was a little bit worse, solely because we had it was a weird situation where it was an apartment that had been a motel at one point. And so we were transitioning back to long-term tenants, and we still had a live-in kind of manager for the time being. And the same property manager was taking back over, but the live-in guy still had a place there. And so when this all went down, he's a great guy, and he took it upon him. He's an old Navy corpsman, retired guy, and took it upon himself to go and clean, I guess. But like he's a character, I guess. I'm not going to ruin your show by like trying to describe this human, because
I think
he's I love the guy. He's crazy. But I don't know if he was drinking. I don't know. He's texting pictures and videos. I like wake up and there are like pictures and videos of like, I mean, you can just imagine. Yeah. You can imagine a guy who swallowed a 12 gauge sitting on his bed and just painted the wall, and then I'm getting like I wake up and it's like, this. All right, guys, this is what the room looks. And he's like jolly as can be, like, just, okay, guys, this is what I'm cleaning, and like blah 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 blah, like just tour of the room. Like it's like there's just a disconnect, and we're like, thanks bud,
thanks for the visual, dude. I'm officially scarred.
Can't unsee that.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Well, I mean, that's real estate right there for you. So anybody that wants to buy real estate, go ahead.
Yeah.
Dive on in.
And you thought toilets. You thought toilets was the problem.
Well, I think it's funny that you say that, Dave, because you kind of get paid to figure out really tough problems, and that's why you're able to amass this, that you have this mentality, whether you realize it or not. It's just like, well, this is just the next thing I got to deal with. Like, I'm going to just figure this one out. I'm not sure if that's a Marine thing or what, but I even feel myself and Ryan and I being a little bit more calloused on stuff that happens. You're just like, I guess this is real estate. Like, this is just part of the game. And that's why you're able to have this quote unquote passive, not really, sometimes passive income that builds you wealth, man. And it has built us some wealth, but not without some scars and bumps and bruises. So
you can't hide from it.
No,
it's going to happen. Like, it's just going to happen if you get in the game.
Yeah.
Maybe not a dad, but
I mean, I remember now that we're telling stories, I remember my second rental that I bought. Sorry, my first rental, second property. I was house hacking at the time. And I was all proud of myself. I bought this property, the one that I'm selling. I didn't do any work to it. Zero. I was like, whatever. You're not supposed to do work to properties. Like, you're just supposed to buy them. They're supposed to cash flow and you're supposed to make money. And I remember 2 weeks in, I got a call during a thunderstorm. And it was like, I don't know if my tenant had like a Nokia, but she was showing a video of rain pouring in my front windows, flooding the house. And I was like freaking out. I was calling every real estate investor that I knew or wanted to know. And they're like, yeah, dude, just go there tomorrow. Like, it's going to be fine. And it ended up, it was fine. I replaced windows for $5,000 total, whatever it was. I got it fixed. I got the mold remediation. It was fine. But I just remember being in that moment, like, I guess this is what it's going to be like. And I didn't know. And now, 3 years later, I'm selling that property and making $100K on my $30,000 that I put into it. So, okay, you have some bumps and bruises along the way, but it's kind of like you have to zoom out these big picture items. And that was also another reason why we hired a property manager. It's like, all right, let them deal with this. It can eat my cash flow. I only made $200-$300 a month for the 3-year span, whatever. I'm now going to go take that and purchase something that pays me more. That's a bigger asset that hopefully appreciates. So it's like, but when you're in those moments and you don't know, you just have to say, I'm not going to give up on it. And that's really what it came down to.
Just have to expect it to happen. I can't, probably count on one hand, probably 30 of these calls, but like, you would call me or I'd call you, just like something new would happen to be another issue.
Something that we've never heard of.
Never heard of. We were trying to call an investor like, dude, actually, that's a weird one. I don't know. And so you just have to go do your own research, figure it out. But needless to say, if you're going to get in the real estate investing game, there is going to be issues that arise. There's a lot more benefit than I get more pros than cons, in my opinion.
But it's the willingness to deal with that shit. That is why I think that there are more pros and cons. If you get into real estate and you expect it to be smooth sailing, you'll be out and probably have to figure some other way to build wealth. But the fact that we're willing to deal with it, I think, is part of the reason why our net worth has increased, our cash flow has increased, our network has increased. We've just stuck with it. David, I want to get down to the core 4 here. Question 1. You mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad. I wonder, is that your favorite business or real estate investing book? And if it is, give us an explanation of why. If not, maybe give us a book that has helped you, that has contributed most to being able to scale your portfolio, if you have one, or a resource even, if it's not a book. What is the single thing or book that has helped you scale?
Who Not How.
Love it.
Cool. It's good.
That's by
Dan Sullivan.
Dan Sullivan. Yeah, I read that book. It's a great book, basically trying to figure out how you can place people in seats to help you grow as opposed to you doing it all yourself. So if people that haven't read it, you should. Question 2.
Cool. Question 2. If we gave you a check, not a blank check for $100,000, tax-free, you could do whatever you want with it, invest it, spend it, just picture a big pie chart. How would you divvy that $100,000 up, knowing what you know now and why?
Well, assuming that I had not just taken on a extreme amount of lines of credit debt to make up for a flip that went ridiculously bad, and I haven't sold the flip yet. So we'll assume that I've sold the flip and I am not in that position, because if I was, I would just pay off the debt, because that's an instant guaranteed return. And then when I sell the flip, that'll all come back. And I like instant guaranteed returns. Always.
So do we.
Especially when they're, decently high interest guaranteed returns. So assuming that, I'm in a position right now where I would be really tempted to take the 100,000 and hand it to the right person as a limited partner and go, I'll see it back in a few years. Thanks.
I think it's a great answer. Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I mean, that's a testament to just this spot you're in your journey. Like, and I'm sure you have connections like that you have someone that you're thinking of that you might want to, who's more of an operator, right? And you want to be more on the passive side.
Yeah. Or I would just put it in my operations account and double down on myself with my own business.
Got it. Cool. Question 3. You've mentioned a couple of them. It sounds like you're not afraid to make them. What has been your biggest mistake that you've made in your investing journey, and how have you learned from it?
Trusting people.
Trusting the wrong people.
Yeah. Well, just trusting people too much, too fast. and then you find out down the road that they might have been the wrong people.
I think that's the networking downside, right? Is that the more you network, the more you meet the people that you feel like you already know because you're able to connect. I feel like I do that all the time. Like, oh, I definitely know this guy. And I'm like, no, you don't, dude. You don't know this guy at all or gal, like at all. You just feel like you do because you both are in sales.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
It's actually I'm glad you brought that up because it's very hard to, some people have put a great mask on and you don't know. Like, how the fuck will you ever know? Truly.
Yeah.
I always give people the benefit of the doubt, happy-go-lucky guy, and you try to, some people easy to read. Other people are not. And you get too deep and you're like, whoa, do we need to pump the brakes here? And sometimes you can't. So it's interesting. Did you realize, I don't want to like narrow down this one person or whatever, but for you, when you realized, hey, what made you realize that this person may have not been the right person? And then how did you like kind of pivot out of that situation?
It's been multiple.
Okay.
And they weren't all terrible situations, right? Some of them were just things that it was like, well, that didn't really work out as well as we thought. Let's go our separate ways. But some of them were outright fraudulent. One of them ended in a 4-year lawsuit that you can listen to on Bigger Pockets, show 734. Because I went and shared every nitty-gritty detail there, and a long enough episode that I probably won't ever go that deep on that lawsuit again anywhere else. But that one, that was just plain, like, just straight fraud. That's the lease option deal I talked about earlier. Some of them, though, you're right. They were just, and unfortunately, a lot of it is religion that people use as the facade for trust and belief and good fronts and whatever. In some of the scenarios, I just realized that people were, not really pulling their weight. Just could tell that the intention had been to, maybe it wasn't the intention, but that the desire was to use me for my brand, or to use, the brand was valuable more so than, whatever.
Yeah, confusion or whatever.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Other situation, like one of the guys just pulled the rug out, he was like, I'm out, and left me with just this burning pile of poop, which is why I'm still dealing with that flip that's going real well. But this is the last of 3 that I'm tying up on that end. But
got it. Cool. So question 4 is, it's funny. I normally get a gauge on people in the episode. I have no clue what your answer is going to be to this. What do you want your legacy to be, if at all? Like, what's your why? What gets you out of bed every morning, and what do you what drives you?
Yeah. So my mission, at least right now, is helping service members and vets achieve financial freedom. Right? We help service members and vets build wealth through real estate, entrepreneurship, personal finance. It's the whole Military Millionaire brand, and it still gets me going. I think the military is probably the best way to, I think it's one of the best things you can do out of high school, and I think it's a great opportunity. And I think service members and vets have some incredible benefits, some incredible opportunities, and I think they just don't know exactly what all the opportunities are and how well they work together if pieced together properly. I'm just trying to help people understand that. So
cool. So everyone check out from militarytomillionaire.com. That's your site. And I was just checking it out earlier today. It seems like you have a lot of cool resources, not just for people that are in the military, but that's definitely a specialty. And we've interviewed a number of people that this is why I asked you the question earlier about what from the military do you feel like it's helped you, because we've interviewed 8 to 10, maybe 12, a dozen people that have like been in the military and now are really successful real estate investors. And I think there is a discipline thing there that you're being humble about, but it's like, I think that there's a lot of elements that factor into success from, a background that teaches you all about like structure. So very, very cool.
Cool. Last question to wrap up the show is the last drop. And essentially what this question is Knowing what you know now, if you could go back to talk to 18-year-old Dave, what advice would you give him on kind of your experiences in the world so far?
There's a lot, but I would say compound interest is a son of a bitch. So start putting some money away in places that compound. Index funds are awesome. So start putting a little bit in index funds immediately. And I give you the longer answer for the advice piece, but essentially that, just pay attention to where you get your advice from, filter it through, has this person achieved what I want to in that specific field? And if not, then in one ear, out the other ear, and take advice from people who have, and get around people who are doing what I want to do.
Love it. Dave, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. You have a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of ups and downs, and the ups obviously outweigh the downs or you wouldn't be where you are today. If people want to get in touch with you, they want to learn more about you, they want to network, what's the best way for people to do that?
They can go to thebestpodcastguest.com. And if they go there, they'll get, they can snag a free copy of my book. But if they're not a service member, they can give it to someone who is. But it's also the easiest way to find all my socials in one spot. I used to just tell people, hey, hit me up on Instagram. And I realized that nobody ever did. So I figure thebestpodcastguest.com is a whole lot easier and more fun to remember than go find me on Instagram if you remember later.
That's great. All right. Dave, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure. We had a blast. So thanks again.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in this week to the Weekly Juice Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share with friends. The more ratings we get, the more ears we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you with more high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram at Weekly Juice Pod, where we post daily tips and tricks and document our own journey towards financial freedom. Make sure to tune in every Wednesday to get your weekly juice.